friends, things are happening quickly. Our next presentation is up on stage and ready to go. Get your burning questions answered by security buyers. Do me a favor and welcome to the stage our friend and yours, Geordie Carswell.
Nice to see everybody. Good morning. Following Tom would be like following Anthony Robbins. That's awesome. Nice job, so thank you. All right, my name is Geordie Carswell. I am the CMO at ActualTech Media, one of the co-founders. We are an official lead generation partner of the Cybersecurity Marketing Society. And back in June, I was talking with Jana, and I said, what should we present on when it comes to Monday morning? And we started talking about what could be unique, what might be really helpful. And one of the things that we started talking about was surveying cybersecurity buyers in the ActualTech Media audience to find out what matters to them, what's important, and how we can pitch them and message to them in a way that's effective, that will reach them. So that landed on this, 2024 Cybersecurity Buyers Report. So how can you, as a marketer, capture the attention of the enterprise security buyer? And once you have that attention, how can you do three things? How can you establish credibility and trust, decipher their buyer organization dynamics, the buying committee, and all those goodies? And then how can you plan for maintaining sales momentum through a sales cycle that could be months and months long? How can marketing help with that? So the hope today is that as we talk about messaging, not just the data points, but what they mean for you as a marketer, that you'll be able to match up with prospect pains, demonstrate your expertise to a sufficient level that it will help you to nail a deal or to help sales to nail a deal. So our goals for this survey were all with a marketing lens. So first of all, to understand the size, state, and sophistication of cybersecurity buyers in the organization, what their priorities are, both security and for overall IT, because all of this dovetails together in many cases. Then what they're outsourcing, what they're planning to outsource, how they buy, how they select a vendor, and then the types of marketing channels and modalities that they use. So a little bit about the survey itself. So while all organization sizes were surveyed, we focused mostly in the reporting that you're about to see on 500 plus. In the back of the report that we're going to share, there's sub 500, but we managed to get 327 senior CISOs, directors of and managers of information security and data privacy officers and so forth to share their thoughts with us and go deep. They came from our in-house audience at ActualTech of 140,000-ish security professionals based in the US. The questions were developed with the help of the society. So a lot of you folks submitted questions that you wanted answers to, and they made it into the survey that we were able to ask of the buyers. A lot of the questions that did come in, some of them were a little too niche for us to include, but we'll hope to include them in the future. But the society was a huge part of making this possible. So we'll kick it right off. How do they describe the maturity of their cybersecurity platform from the perspective of the NIST framework? So lots of tier 1 and 2s in here, lots of I don't knows. So, if you're a marketer, how can you help them to mature? This kind of messaging might start to resonate. Helping them to understand what the framework is, how they can use your tool to get there. And then if you have folks who are a little farther along in the 3s and 4s and the repeatable and adaptable, how can you help them to stay ahead of the latest threats or to gain an edge? So messaging to them around gaining an edge might, because they've already got the basics covered, they're doing well. So it's like, how do we help them level up? Then we ask them, what their tech stack includes right now. Obviously, there's a lot of no-brainers here, but we start to think about what the penetration level is of these various categories. So we start to see solid implementation footprints for things like IAM, endpoint and human security. So if you're in those spaces, as you look at how you go to market, you've gone from you should have a solution for, you should have an IAM solution, you should have human security training, to now you should choose us, why you should choose our solution, why it's different, why upgrade, right? Because they've got the basics covered. They have a solution already, so the messaging shifts a little bit. SecOps has a huge opportunity to grow, so how can you help them to achieve operational maturity? That might be a message that would resonate as well. All right. So the takeaways when we look at the size of their organization or their cybersecurity team, people are doing double or triple duty. Even in large organizations, if they have 21 to 100 security staff, these are in organizations of 50,000, 75,000 people, 100,000 people. Those people, even in the 21 to 100 range, are overloaded. And so when we think about our messaging as marketers, maybe we start to think about being a little more empathetic, right? Are you barely keeping your head above water? How can we help you do that? How can we help you go from being reactive to proactive? They're doing more with less. Here's how we can help you take things to the next level. So kind of an interesting little data point there. All right, now let's get into the juicy stuff. So drivers and pains. What are their overall corporate IT priorities and investments for the coming year? So, and how can we align go-to-market messaging with these priorities for the business? So number one, cost optimization and efficiency. How do you message that you can actually deliver that? When we started thinking about case studies, hard number examples in those case studies, we went from X to Z and ended up with better results. ROI calculators. Maybe you have a guide to cost reduction in your area or efficiencies in your area. A nice little piece of content there might do well. Modernization, and as you look at number 4 and 5 in digital transformation, focusing on, as a marketer, how old solutions are missing the ability to keep up with the latest threats. That might be something that you could message. Number 6, making compliance easier. Not we can help you comply, but we can make that process less painful. Number 7, this used to be a lot higher, but it's dropped down in the light of these other initiatives. Resiliency and business continuity projects. So thinking about how your solution can help prospects build, test, and maintain resiliency, if that's a space that you're in. So these are sort of what they're looking at from a business perspective. This is what's getting driven top down. Next, what threats? What is on the minds of folks? So the first, 1, 2, 3, these are people problems. They still view people as their most significant vulnerability. So what does that mean for for you as a marketer in your messaging? Training is a big one. So if you're in the training space, continues to be a massive opportunity. When you're in the automation space where you have tools that help with these things, maybe pitching as a fail-safe for humans, right? We love our humans, but they're kind of scary. And so how your tool might help them to build around that. The other thing that struck me as I looked at this is if your solution deals with multiple checkboxes here, can you pitch that it's an integrated solution, right? So when you think about it, who wants to handle all of these problems with individual tools? Like, it's going to be a spaghetti. And so if you have a solution that will do things on an integrated basis, maybe that's the message to hit on, right? You need less tools. Use us. What are their primary motivators for engaging in a new solution purchase? So why do they talk to us in the first place? The first one, proactive messaging. So reducing risk. How can you help them get ahead of risks is going to hit. Not just to remediate, not just to be reactive, but how can you help them to be proactive in getting ahead on things? Content around how to cover gaps. So quote unquote, seal the gaps that keep you up at night. Maybe that kind of messaging could resonate. Refresh programs on the outdated technology line item. So in the old days of hardware IT sales, it used to be a big, trade-in promos were a big thing. How does that work with software? Well, it can work the same way. Buybacks, trade-in programs, trade in your old licenses of X, Y, and Z, and we'll give you a discount towards this. Those types of initiatives, as they look at refreshing outdated technology, could be really powerful. Government regulations. I just thought one thing that I see a lot on vendor websites is that they have a compliance, they talk about their compliance or regulation, how they help with regulations, but they don't split it out vertically in a lot of cases. So they don't have landing pages for healthcare regulations and how they help with that. They don't have landing pages for finance and how they help with that. And so breaking out solutions pages that talk about how you help in each verticalized area, especially if there's regulatory requirements in those areas, could be powerful there as well. All right, there was something else here. I'm just going to see. Yeah. Oh, insurance requirements. This was surprising to me. So they are. I don't know a lot about cybersecurity insurance, and hopefully I never have to. But maybe they cannot get a premium reduction, or they can't get covered in the first place if they don't have a certain amount of coverage on the compliance front. So maybe that's a little campaign to run, to try. Something there. What are they looking to accomplish with a new tool? What are they looking to do? So risk reduction, number one. So now we gave people like a write-in area where they could explain a little more by what they meant by risk reduction. And there was a couple of things that bubbled up. Number one, they are looking at reduction of organizational risk. So reduction of from a security incident, obviously. Next, they're looking at the reduction of personal career risk. One person wrote, staking your reputation on a tool that fails to deliver keeps me up at night. So if you're a startup, you're going to have to overcome that hump. So there could be a couple ways to take the risk mitigation line item there. The desire for increased visibility and to understand exposure and the time savings that could come through automation are also big drivers there in number 2 and number 3. And so marketers can leverage the desire for more automations by making it clear how much time can be saved by implementing your solution versus not focusing on, oh, it doesn't take that long to implement, right? So yeah, every new tool is going to take some time to get up and running. You got a proof of concept, you got all this stuff, but yeah, it'll take some time. But focusing on the long term, right? After that's done, how much time are you going to save? How much effort are you going to save on an ongoing basis? And so we threw a question in, actually, about the primary concerns when considering a proof of concept with you. This was telling. There's a few things here. So they're concerned about scope. What does this mean? They're concerned about integration with their existing systems. They don't know how to measure whether something was successful, number 3. The resources that will be required of them in order to actually implement the POC, and they got privacy concerns, timeline, etc. It occurred to me that presenting a well-articulated scope for a POC that's easy to agree to is going to help your success rate there. So how can marketing help? Well, maybe marketing can create a POC concerns battle card for sales, or a trust-building asset for the client or for prospects, like a POC guide, right? Guide to a successful POC where it addresses tons of these things up front, right? And then making sure to include some detail around an off-ramp if they feel that it wasn't successful. So if for some reason, and this never happens, that the POC isn't successful, then how do we end the engagement on friendly terms and try again when we maybe have the features that they need, or we have better performance, or those types of things. You never fail, you always try for the next time. If they're an outsourcing partner here, so you're an MSP, what are the primary reasons that you would engage with a managed service provider versus managing something in-house? So they are looking for 24/7, they are looking for expertise that you can bring to them. They are looking to get rid of busy work, so they're looking for efficiency at the low end, so clearing away the tasks or the issues that are keeping them from the things that really matter. Maybe that's a message that could be implemented if you're, or tried in a campaign if you are a firm that handles outsourcing. Cost effectiveness, this was interesting, how low cost savings is down the chain. Compliance requirements. Most often, if you're an MSP, you should be able to hit on a number of these in your messaging in the first, in one package campaign to make it more useful. What are you outsourcing now? So the thing that struck me here is that none of these are over 50% in these areas, meaning that there is headroom to grow in getting companies to outsource these things pretty much across the board, no matter what your category is. So you've got lots of growth opportunity available. The other was really big here at 17%, and I realize it's because we framed the question really poorly. You should have added a line item for pen testing, because pen testing is the 17%. So that is one area where there's lots of opportunity for growth in outsourced services. When we get into how they buy, there's a few sort of high-level things that I appreciated. One of them is that this is a long game for sales and marketing to get a new solution implemented, to get something done. Sales and marketing need to be prepared to work together to nurture prospects along through the buying process with assets, with messaging, with touch points, with value add, to keep a heartbeat with the client as these sales cycles go on, and how difficult it is to get quick wins. So Tom talked about, how are you going to nail getting a deal in Q4 when there's 3 weeks late? It's not going to. He's right. It's not going to happen, and we'll see why. So, how do they budget? So, do you budget quarterly or annually? Very few are doing quarterly budgets. What does this mean for you as a marketer? It means you need to be early in your conversations with them all the time. And of course, this happens on a rolling basis with prospects. So awareness and nurturing needs to start early so that you are top of mind when it's budget time. So the other thing that I thought too with this is maybe when they ask you for ballpark figures, can we get some pricing? Maybe they're not asking you because they're comparing you right then. Maybe they're trying to get a line item for you in the budget. So just open up, give them some numbers to work with that might help a little bit. It's not like they're putting you through a competitive process right on the spot. Or you can just ask, is this for budgetary purposes? I can give you a number if that helps. How far in advance do you start budgeting for your cybersecurity solutions? So the likelihood, again, of a close-won deal in under 3 months, if the budget hasn't already been allocated, is pretty low. We can see down 7%, 1 to 3 months. 30 days, these people just had an incident. They need to do something now. But typically, we're looking at, 3 to 12, I don't know what drags on beyond 12 months, but that's kind of scary. But 18 months. Yep. So what does it mean? It means that marketing and sales need to be realistic in forecasting their expectations, especially at startups, around how long it's going to take for these sales cycles to play out. So for marketers, what can you do? Keep a steady pulse of regular touch points and check-ins with the prospect as they go through this vendor selection process. It also occurred to me, how can you get in front of the budget process and use this to your advantage to give them a way to, like I said, allocate some budget for you in the beginning. This 68% are using RFPs in some sense. I don't know if this message meshes with what your sales folks see in the marketplace. But as a marketer, how can you help them craft an RFP so that it's designed to go your way? When I used to sell IBM, we were notorious for this. We would basically write what would ultimately go into the RFP in a way that was framed for us to win and only us. And so that RFP came out tailor-made for us. It included features that only we had, or it included some kind of functionality that was very hard to compete with. So as a marketer, can you provide them with an RFP template that helps the process along? That might be nice. Can they just cut and paste your talking points into their RFP? And your competitors will get it and be like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But that's kind of the point. Anyway. So how long does your vendor selection process take? A long time. It takes a long time. And so as marketers, we start to think about how can we keep a consistent presence or a pulse in front of prospect organizations as they go through their selection process. And right now, for a lot of organizations, it's just salespeople checking in, going, "Hey, just checking in, want to get an update. How's it going? How's the process coming along? Any questions I can answer?" Marketing can help a lot with this by giving some value, right? As you're going through the process, here's a couple assets that you might find useful at this stage, at this stage, at this stage, as things tick along. So how can you work with sales to drip feed value through these long vendor selection time periods and keep the momentum going your way? Because there is the chance that things just peter out. People get fired, they leave, entire initiatives just die on the table due to, whatever. So where do they prefer to buy? I thought this was cool. Are they willing to go direct? They are. Buyers are more than willing to go to direct, which is awesome for margins on the vendor side, but obviously you can't sleep on the importance of your VARs. So as a marketing team, do you have a strategy to support your VARs? Now, I don't know about you, but maybe you've noticed that VARs can swing business any number of ways. If they like you, if there's something in it for them, even if it maybe isn't the best solution, sometimes they'll kick a deal your way if you're supportive of them. And so thinking about how you can support them. Also, if a deal originates with you, but the buyer then wants to go through a VAR or an integrator, can you in marketing help to provide the background materials to make that handoff smooth so that it doesn't get routed to a competitor at the last minute because they happen to have a better relationship. So you want to make it look as deep as possible. That may be more of a sales point, but how many stakeholders are typically on your decision committee? Okay, so there's a lot of nuance here. Even in larger organizations, I think the first takeaway was that the buying committee may be smaller than you think. The 2 to 5 actually played out in a few places. For marketers, that's good news. It means you only need to build influence over 2 to 5 people instead of 20. Above 2,500 employees, when we looked at that, you're going to be talking a lot more with people who care about different things, so that you're going to have assets and messaging that is focused to finance, assets and messaging that are focused to core IT to help with integration, things like that. You have to figure out what those 2 to 5 people or those 6 to 10 people care about, and then how can you do that? We were thinking about that earlier. Talk to your sales folks and say, can you set up some interviews with customers for me so I can find out, on customers who had larger buying committees, so you can find out who those roles were, and then hopefully talk to them and find out what they care about. Being able to map out messaging for key stakeholders and how to overcome their objectives is going to be key. In organizations with 500 or more employees, as shown here, IT management still apparently plays the lead role in making the call, followed by the CISO, security management teams, and so forth. When you get into organizations over 5,000, the CISO takes the driver's seat, and IT management, basically those flip in larger organizations. And then collectively, in organizations over 5,000, other roles start to get involved because the expenditures are larger. And then in small companies, it tends to be the owner, founder, principal, especially in the under 500. They're the ones that are heavily involved. What is your typical decision criteria when selecting a vendor? So when it comes to decision criteria, features are king, but that is relative, right? It only insofar as those features map to what they need, right? So what their pains are, what their challenges are. Can your solution map to that? The pricing, same thing. They might say pricing is a big issue, but that's only relative to how much they have to spend. So, their budget. Vendor reputation and risk assessment, number 3 and 4. Probably those are just trust things. Do they trust you? Stakeholder recommendations could be based on conversations in Slack with other people in the dark social space or on Reddit or whoever, who knows, right? And interestingly, a previous relationship with you as a vendor may matter less than you think. So sales is not going to be able to rely on incumbency, especially if you're helping them with renewals. You're going to have to win the business just about every time. And finally, we look at where people like to learn. about new cybersecurity solutions. So webinars, now there's a caveat here. So this is the ActualTech media audience who are, and we do webinars, right? So they're heavily lean that way. But dark social, recommendations from friends, Reddit. I lumped tech websites and Reddit in together, but we gave people an open field to sort of indicate and then put it into a word cloud, and it was like Reddit. So it's a big thing. I was thinking about with the Reddit problem, right? If you have an SME who has a lot of karma and a good reputation in there, that can go a long way. That can be a very, very valuable thing when those conversations come up, not just in putting out fires, but in vendor selection. Analyst reports, often they're just used by buyers as a starting point. You know, what's the short list of the usual suspects? Okay, let's go evaluate them. If they could get, in a lot of cases, just the quadrant graphic, they would take it from there. They don't really care too much about the analysis in a lot of cases, which I think speaks to what Tom was mentioning earlier. Then we've got, trade shows, obviously going to continue to be a player, podcast, social media, all that kind of probably folds into the dark social category. So this was just sort of scratching the surface of what we put together in cooperation with the Cybersecurity Marketing Society, a full report. We did an additional part 2 on this where we deep dove into all of these different technology areas, and it's pretty nerdy. But if you're looking for data points around some of these categories that you're in, so SecOps, API security, you want to know who's doing what and what matters to them, and what the penetration is of certain areas of these categories, then that'll be super helpful. So we have printed 300 and something copies of this guy. So you're welcome to come by the ActualTech booth, which is next to the stage in the, what is the room, Moonflower?
Expo Hall Moon Tower.
Moon Tower?
I do like Moonflower, though.
Moonflower? I'm not hip enough. Yeah, so we wanted to give a big thank you to all the folks from the society who contributed questions that we think make a really useful asset. ActualTech Media is not a research firm, so we're not trying to be Gartner when we grow up. We just thought these would be interesting data points, and people would share with us from the audience information that maybe they wouldn't share with another firm because of that level of access. So if you have any questions or you'd like to talk to the ActualTech team about how to get access to that audience of 140K, we'd be happy to chat with you. And as you come and get your free copy, either a digital copy or a beautifully printed, ring-bound, glossy report. So thank you, everybody, and I hope that was helpful.
How sweet it is to be loved by you.
That was fantastic. Let's hear it one more time for Geordie Carswell, everybody. Thank you, Geordie. Great job, sir. All right, our next presentation comes up at 10:20 a.m. Got a little break in the schedule here. We'll be playing some tunes in here. If you need to use the restroom, grab a drink. Be back at 10:20 for our next presentation. Be ready. It's Carmen Harris. It's going to be good. We'll see you then.